I was randomly watching a Let's Play of Kingdom Hearts, and I just suddenly, remembered, my interpretation / misinterpretation I had as a kid of, Kairi's motivations in the start of Kingdom Hearts 1. And, I thought it might be interesting to talk about. I just want to go ahead and say that I will be editing this in post to, add in clips of the relevant scenes, to make more coherent sense. But I just want you all to know that while I was recording this, I was just staring at this freeze frame of Sora the entire time. See, as a kid, when I was playing this, I myself am what's called aromantic asexual, which means I've never in my life experienced any sort of, sexual feelings or romantic interest in anybody. And when I was first playing this game as a kid, it was kind of, in that moment of your life where, a very relatable experience of, most asexual or aromantic or both people do tend to experience during that part of their childhood. It was kind of a time when, everyone else around you is first starting to have, crush feelings, and, all the adults will act as if, inevitably everyone will have it. There's no chance you could possibly not have it. So, it's a moment where you kind of start getting pressure by everyone. Every single thing you do, it gets interpreted as oh, well, you're a girl, there's a boy who you're just acting exactly the same as you always acted to. But I was oh no, you must have a crush on them, and all oh look at this nice little couple. Oh you're going out and doing friend activities with a person of the opposite sex. It must mean that this is your crush and your boyfriend, and have you got a crush yet? And it's a lot of pressures along that, and a lot of feeling I myself haven't changed, but everyone around me expects that me doing the same action is interpreted in an entirely different way just because I've hit this age threshold where everyone else except for me is having these changes happening, and a lot of sad situations where you not having these feelings and the other people having these feelings ends up causing a loss of friendships, or in some cases friction between you and family members who would be very into the idea of no, when's your little childhood crush gonna happen and stuff like that, and not accepting or not letting you even know that the possibility exists. Some people just are born who just don't have that in them. And yeah, we are a minority and all, but I feel this is why it's important to teach kids about stuff like this, because I just thought I was broken for a long time, and I just got overly angry and upset about these things because it did feel I wasn't being listened to. And then to grow up and find out oh yeah, I was actually right the entire time. I was never gonna magically start changing, and it does looking back, and it does make it feel there was a lot of stressful experiences that could have just been completely avoided if people just took no for an answer. So anyway, a lot of the dialogue during the introduction of the game accidentally resonated a lot with me and made me interpret. My initial interpretation was that Kairi was either asexual herself or just simply wasn't interested in either Sora or Riku, and felt really stressed out with how things, cause there's so much focus on how things are changing, and oh no I have to choose between one of you two because we can't just both be friends, and it really intensely gave me the vibes of Kairi is not interested in either of them, and she just feels really upset that her two friends have now started fighting and stopped being close friends with each other over her, when she hasn't changed and she never wanted any of this. And I know none of that was intended, because later on in the series she does become a love interest for Sora, and probably the fact that there was no shipping vibes at all in this was literally just because it was badly written and I wasn't getting it, and also because biased time and everything. But I do think it's interesting to think about it from that perspective. You have a lot of these lines of complete melancholy, really sad feelings coming from her about everyone's changing, and you and Sora, you and Riku used to be such good friends, and now you're rivals and you're fighting over me. And it really did feel she just felt completely negative towards the whole idea of romance here going on, or at least the effects that romance was having on her friend dynamic. I just felt really sad for her, to be honest. Almost nothing that Kairi actually does in the game is romantic in any way, or it could all just be interpreted as normal friend activities. I mean, she gives him a friendship charm and just generally enjoys his company, and I feel if Kairi was a male character, or if we hadn't already started the game with the pre-started context of both Sora and Riku have a crush on her and everything, you would just entirely interpret those interactions as regular platonic things. And it feels she's constantly deflecting from the subject. Whenever Sora and Riku start getting all weird fighty, oh we have a crush on you about her, she completely just no-sells it and tries to change the subject back to just being regular friends. Like, there's lots of times where she just, like, oh, let's go back and do something, like, childish and regular and friendly. Like, the first time in the game we ever see Sora and Rico bickering over her, we immediately get...
I'll race you.
What? Are you kidding?
Ready? Go!
Which I think is actually a really good scene. At first, Rico acts like, oh, I'm not interested in it, no, I want to do it. But it's so funny how immediately as soon as Kairi starts the race, he is off and out of it. He's gone, he's absolutely enjoying himself. Whenever they are doing something like really childish and kiddie and everything, like, she's having an absolute blast. Like, I don't know if it's just like my interpretation is tainted by the English voice acting, but like, Sora and Rico are just like regularly enjoying having a race, and she just laughing her head off maniacally like some sort of crazy mad scientist. Now to me that kind of showed that like Kairi just doesn't want to deal with the topic of like, oh, who's gonna date me now and all that. And also it also shows that Kairi like really knows her friends, because like she knows that like no matter like how much Rico is like gonna pretend and play that he doesn't want to do it, it's like at heart like they do still enjoy like going off doing silly childish things together all as friends. And it makes me feel like perhaps a bit melancholy, thinking like maybe those days will be over, so maybe there will be one day it can't just be solved this easily. It can't just be like, hey, let's stay friends, let's not fight. So I don't know, that was a bit too much of thinking over a small silly scene. Maybe it didn't mean anything. And like this level of her just like not being interested in like not wanting to deal with any of this kind of even extends to like the situation of them like trying to go off on a raft to like see the world. It feels like if anything like she's not interested in this at all, and I feel like she has to like go for it, otherwise like her she just doesn't want to cause a rift between her friends like anymore. So then she, like this is like her last idea of like how to change things, like literally to get on a raft and like leave the whole world, leave the whole concept of like this is what has to happen, like when boys and girls get older this is how things have to go. It kind of almost feels like she's like clinging on to like childhood and like thinking that maybe things will never have to change if like we can just leave. Plus also combined with a bit of like, if I disagree with them on something again, like are they just gonna hate me? Because like there's a scene of her of like Sora asking her about, and it's like multiple scenes like Sora and Rico both asking her about like, how do you feel about like not knowing where you came from before your amnesia? Do you want to go out and find out where you are? And
hey Kairi, what was your hometown like? You know, where you grew up?
I've told you before. I don't remember.
Nothing at all?
Nothing.
Do you ever want to go back?
Well, I'm happy here.
Her answer is always just no, and like I don't remember, and I don't have any desire to go back to that because I don't remember what it was. I have like no memory of it. I have no emotional attachment to it. I am very happy here with my current home with like everyone who loves me, and like I don't know, I kind of feel like almost metaphorically that's also representing like how it feels like Kairi and what she wants and what she actually desires is like not being taken into consideration by anybody. Because they do kind of just like go ahead with it, and they say that like the motivation for it is because of like trying to find out where Kairi came from, but Kairi doesn't want to find out where Kairi came from. What really cemented to me the idea like is Kairi going along with a raft plan because she's like worried about breaking up with friends, is there's a whole scene where Rico's saying like he probably never would have thought about leaving the islands if Kairi hadn't have shown up.
That's why we need to go out there and find out. Just sitting here won't change a thing. It's the same old stuff. So let's go.
You've been thinking a lot lately, haven't you?
Thanks to you. If you hadn't come here, I probably would have never thought of any of this.
And like, I feel like from Kairi's from the perspective of this headcanon, if Kairi is indeed feeling all these things, I feel like that would probably been the worst possible thing she could hear at that moment. Like, if she's already worrying or like things are irrecoverably changing, like just by her being here, like just by her being a girl, and she's going to be inevitably like causing a rift between these two friends. Just by the nature of what she is, rather than anything she's actually done or is saying. And it's something she can't avoid and can't stop in any way. So like being told that literally you coming to the island is what's caused Rico to start having these like dangerous thoughts of like wanting to leave the island at any cost, even if it means betraying his friends, it's like that's really got to hit really hard. And like metaphorically, like symbolically, I can link back into like the idea, the fear of like just because you are a girl, everything is going to change and every man is going to view you in like just because you are a girl, or In my case, a closeted trans person who was stuck in a body that they don't want and being interpreted as something they definitely are not. Just feeling like, because you are a girl, inevitably, like, all of your male friends are going to change how they see you. Like, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, with no logic to anything, you're only going to be seen as, like, someone who you can date, and not, like, as if friendships between men and women can't exist anymore. And it's like the pressure to, like, date someone even if you feel absolutely nothing for them, even if, like, you've never felt anything for anyone, just because, like, the idea like you'll never have any male friends ever again, and the only possible way you could ever have a close relationship with a man is like if you date them, otherwise you will end up alone for the rest of your life. It can lead to a lot of people rushing into relationships that they really didn't want. And this can happen from like both the male and female perspective, because there is this pressure on both sides that this is what you have to do. There are plenty of men who are also asexual and have gone through exactly the same thing. It really sucks. One thing that's really interesting and really out of place and like really feeds into my headcanon is what was up with that whole scene where Kairi was like, haha, let's run away together without Riku. Like,
You know, Riku has changed.
What do you mean?
Well,
You okay?
Sora, let's take the raft and go. Just the two of us.
Huh?
Just kidding.
What's gotten into you? You're the one that's changed, Kairi.
Maybe. You know, I was a little afraid at first, but now I'm ready. No matter where I go or what I see, I know I can always come back here. Right?
Yeah, of course.
That's good. Sora, don't ever change.
as it is, in the game, that makes no sense whatsoever. There are, like, very few interpretations of what's going on about there, except, like, oh, she was just, like, being lol random and doing that because, I don't know, that's how girls be. She's, like, trying to tease the two of them because, I don't know. Like, the way I was seeing that is just how uncomfortable she felt while in that scene. Like, she didn't really feel like she was genuinely, like, laughing at all. And again, might be tainted by the English voice acting being a bit odd. To me, it felt like she really genuinely never wanted that, and it kind of felt like maybe she was, like, testing Sora, because of how the context of when it comes up is, like, she's like, Riku has been changing so much, and, like, Sora never changed. To me, that kind of made it register as, like, the reason she was, like, teasing Sora of, like, oh, I think we should run away together, is because maybe Riku had genuinely actually said that to her, like, behind Sora's back, he'd actually said, let's run away together without Sora, and, like, Kairi was kind of shook by that, and she was thinking, like, has Riku already changed so much because of this crush on me that, like, he's gonna not want to be friends with Sora ever again? And, like, she's going back to Sora and, like, putting the same question to him, trying to figure out, like, does he also feel the same way? And, like, Sora reacting with, like, absolute disgust and confusion to that idea made her go, like, oh, phew, he hasn't changed. And that's why she's like, Sora never changed, and she starts laughing about it, and, like, she's like, oh, it was no big deal, it was just a joke. It's like she, like, got vulnerable and said something that, like, genuinely reflected, like, how she felt, and then she kind of, like, played it off as a joke because, like, it was obvious that Sora had no idea what she was talking about, and that, like, made her super relieved because, like, she knew that Sora was not also in on this, like, big strangeness of, like, people completely changing at puberty because of, like, ideas of what they're supposed to be doing. And that also kind of builds into the thing that's, like, I also kind of felt like Sora and Riku, like, didn't actually have a crush on Kairi either. And again, this might just be because of how badly flubbed the whole writing was, but, like, it's worth pointing out that, like, a hell of a lot of Sora and Riku scenes of, like, bickering over Kairi, like, don't contain Kairi at all and don't really say anything about Kairi. Like, throughout the majority of the game, it really kind of feels like they're just using Kairi as, like, another kind of thing they can compete with each other about. Like, one-ing up each other, this is something we can win, rather than, like, something we actually genuinely want. And then, of course, later games have, like, infamously had, like, a lot of scenes that could be read as more, like, shipping Sora and Riku rather than, like, Kairi. And, again, it could just be because of, like, the bad writing of how utterly sidelined Kairi was in later games, which, like, that's its whole other problem. But yeah, there's definitely room here for an interpretation that, like, Kairi never had feelings for either of them. They also, like, felt like they were obligated to have feelings for us, sort of, and, like, it was the sort of thing you had to fight about, and stuff like that. And it's also, like, a very much up for interpretation that, like, maybe their fighting was, like, them, like, dealing with positive feelings in a very unhealthy coping mechanism. Like, to me, the one scene that really got to that in this game was, like, a whole scene where Riku is like, hey, have a Paopu fruit. They're, like, they say if two people eat one together, they'll, like, be bonded forever. And then there's, like, a long pause before he says, so go do it with Kairi.
You wanted one, didn't you? If two people share one, their destinies become intertwined. They'll remain a part of each other's lives, no matter what. Come on, I know you want to try it.
What are you talking?
And like to me, even as a kid, that came was he actually hitting on Sora for a second there, and then like backed out and like tried to like compensate over it. I doubt it was intentional, but like clunky line delivery really came off that way. So there's definitely room to interpret this in like a million different ways. Like whatever you want to ship, it definitely is even room, like everything I said about Kairi, like that could be entirely open for like if you're into like poly shipping. There's like an interpretation where like Kairi did have a crush on both of them, but was still very uncomfortable with like them fighting over each other and didn't want them to have to choose, and like one of them to be like excluded from the friendship group forever and everything. And like really, I think regardless of what we ship, we can all just agree that like the canon Sora and Kairi content completely sucks, and like there is such room for so many interpretations because there is basically nothing here. Even a lot of Sora and Kairi shippers actually agree, and like they have done great jobs creating fan works to fix all of this stuff and like actually genuinely have like proper good shipping feels for this. I absolutely adore them for it. Filling in the gaps with a silly little perspective that like maybe not a lot of people have thought about. So if my Ace Arrow Kairi head canons have like resonated with you, then that's awesome. Feel free to use them in anything you want. Or else have fun making your own rad head canons. I'd love to hear them all. Thanks for listening.